Awesome. Okay, good. What we're gonna first do is talk a little bit about what dynamic hangboard training entails, and then we'll actually do the hangboard session together. So um, hopefully you guys have hangboards with you. If not, feel free to just watch and learn. But during the course of this time, if you guys have any questions, I'm just going to keep on going back and forth and looking if there's any questions in the chat group, or feel free to just hit the space button and ask me a question. But so this is a continuation of my previous class. Anyone get a raise of hands, or who came to my class 2 weeks ago on the regular hangboard session? Anyone? Okay. All right. So we're all new here, but this class is going to be more of a advanced level hangboarding. So not necessarily actual hangboarding where you're just going to be very static, but I want to do more of a dynamic style hangboard session just to vary it up a little bit. So maybe in the chat group, or you guys can feel free to just throw out your fingers. How many years have you guys been climbing for around? Anyone? 10 years, 4 years, 2 years? Victoria, Craig, about 1 year. Climbing strong still. Who else? Off and on, 10 plus years. Great. Jake, 8 years. Nice. Max, 5 years. Okay, so very good. I think it's going to be important that you do have a little bit of experience, or a good amount of experience, like maybe 3+ years of climbing experience. As well as if you're a boulderer, I would say you should be able to comfortably climb like around V5 level, just so that your fingers would have adapted to the level of stress of what we're going to be doing. And if that's not the case, don't necessarily think that you should not do what we're doing. I think modifying the exercises to your intensity level will be good. Just make sure you guys don't have any finger issues right now while we're doing these exercises. Okay, so next slide here. I think a lot of you know my background, so I'll be really quick. I've been a PT in Chicago for over 10 years, and I have my own practice called Lee Physical Therapy. And the last, letters to my name, it's a fellowship program that I completed in manual therapy. I also do online consults for everyone that might be interested. And during this COVID time, I'm also reducing the price to 50%. So if you guys have any problems, not just climbing related, I see it from head to toe, all sorts of musculoskeletal issues. So feel free to reach out to me for that. So let's talk a little bit about some principles. As a physical therapist, I see exercise and I see just injuries from a different perspective, right? As opposed to someone that's not a PT, or someone that's a programmer or an artist, right? I see a lot of exercises through a very specific lens, and my philosophy of just even practicing as a physical therapist is I really like to educate my patients and just the general public to know what they're doing, right? A lot of times sometimes we follow like what people say to do as exercises, and we don't really know the reasoning behind it, and that can either, best scenario is you'll get stronger, but worst case scenario, you could potentially get hurt. Or if you don't really understand the reasoning behind what you're doing with that exercise, and it's too hard or too challenging, then maybe you want to give up, right? So I think a lot of what I like to do personally as a physical therapist is show the reasoning behind the exercises that we do. So if you guys have heard anything about rate of force development, right? It's a a you know, a phrase that's been thrown out a lot these days. And I think even within the past 10 years, it's become a lot more, um, the term has been used a lot more, right? And what is this rate of force development? It pretty much helps to indicate a lot of performance levels. So if you see the force, if the y-axis would be the force and the x-axis would be the time. And you see that line, and later on I'm going to show a couple graphs so that you can actually see it illustrated. But rate of force development is that slope of where that line goes, right? And what does that mean? Pretty much just means the intensity of muscle contraction, right? How fast can you be able to recruit your muscles and go into this explosive movement as quick as possible? And the higher the rate of force development is, the better you're going to perform, right? And examples of that would be like sprinters, boxers, like being able to punch as fast as possible, right? Or powerlifters, more so Olympic lifts, where you're actually having to lift the weight and you have to like bring that over your head, right? So a lot of these like very rapid movements, they've done a lot of studies, and this is something that's been a little bit newer in the climbing world, but in terms of like the weightlifting world and track, like sports, like running, sprints, right? There, it's a very, very, it's old in a way, right? So it's used to measure the ability to rapidly generate muscle force. So one of the studies back in 2002 that was probably one of the more important studies that started off this whole RFD, or rate of force development, was this one where they measured, if you look at the picture, they measured the ability for your quads to extend. So you're extending your knee as quick as possible, right? And they did a 14-week training program to do different type of exercises, different like hack squats, a lot of things to develop to strengthen your legs. And then post 14 weeks, they retested everyone's rate of force development. And what do you know? Like that rate dramatically increases, right? So training really helps to build up that that slope, right? So if you look at the x-axis, this is the force, and I'm sorry, the y-axis is the force, x-axis is the time. So if you look at the line here, the solid line, and you notice post-training how much more force you're able to generate, right, at a quicker rate. Another example, so previously this is, they use a biodex, or it's called a isokinetic machine, right? Other examples, people can use like a force plate that you're standing on. And what this one was measuring is how fast were you able to pull that barbell up, and then you just relax. And so you see the point from A to point B and how quickly you're able to get to that point, right? And point B is the maximal velocity that you're able to get that bar shooting up towards your head. And next example is someone isometrically pulling a barbell, and you see the force plates on the ground. And if you look at the graph, you know, just below 600 newtons, that's pretty much the person's weight. And at point A is where they start pulling as fast as possible. And so you see that curve, right? The slope from A, and it just shoots up. That would be considered the rate of force development, right? And point B would be the peak. So these are examples that have been done in countless number of studies to show what the rate of force development and how that applies. So in everyday life, you see these pictures, right? How does this apply to our lives? For the first example, for an Olympic lifter, if they're having to lift hundreds of pounds above their shoulders and eventually above their head, right? You have to have that explosive movement there. And next picture is unfortunately an elderly who ends up falling. And how does this apply to them? Well, if they, a lot of times we almost do a disservice out of our goodwill. We know that, we try to take care of the elderly and try to protect them. But in a way, that's almost providing a disservice to them, because we have to really help to build up their strength. And in order for someone, 70 or 80 years old, a lot of times what ends up happening is the rate of force development actually gets significantly drops. But a lot of studies have shown that strength training, even amongst the elderly, you can actually get that rate of force development to shoot back up, so that they trip, and then they need to be able to recruit that muscle to prevent themselves from falling. But a lot of times they end up falling because they are unable to generate that quick force, right? And how does this relate to climbers? Well, a lot of dynamic movements that we do as climbers, you have to learn to be able to recruit that muscle quickly and to be able to create an explosive power and to make the sound, obviously. All right, so how is it that we are able to better improve the rate of force of development? It is through rapid muscle activation, and there's two different ways, right? First way, so there's also a lot of different other abilities or different methods of improving this RFD, but the two proven ways to help with people that are trained in the sense of like more athletic populations are explosive, ballistic type of movements. So if you look at the pictures, the person that's lifting the barbell, right? They have to just explode and lift that barbell up. Well, how does this relate to us? We can, for climbers, in order for us to be able to get that quick movement, there's a lot of medicine ball training. So even just throwing the ball down and just as fast as you can, be able to quickly throw that ball that's weighted. That's another form of ballistic training. And if you believe it or not, that actually is going to help to improve your front lever ability, right? Second way is heavy resistance training, right? So whereas the first picture, the guy lifting the barbell, it's a lot more explosive. There is some explosiveness involved in doing a deadlift, but it's definitely doesn't necessarily have to be as quick, right? But the strength is really important, right? For climbers, how does this apply? Even doing weighted pull-ups are going to be absolutely crucial for your lats to develop that strength. I think your lats, so if you guys know the difference between fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers, your lats have a consistency of like 50% of that fast twitch muscle fiber. So they benefit from doing like heavy loaded pull-ups, right? To build up that strength. Okay, so how does this look in terms of the time frame of rate of force of development? There's a lot of words, but just simply put, that rate of force development, the crucial window is about 50 to 75 milliseconds, right? And so if you look at that graph, just between where that red box is, that's where we're trying to target. So less than a second, right? And how does this apply to what we're going to be doing on the hangboard? That's going to be important because with this almost like a split second movement contraction, that's where that's going to help us to develop some of that improvement and to be able to do more dynamic movements. right? So it's going to be really important to remember that this is not something where you want to, unlike regular hangboard training where you're holding for a good 7 to 10 seconds of hanging for that duration. These exercises are going to be a lot more focused on just like intense ballistic powerful moves, and then get off after a second, take a break, and then do that over again, right? So I had this slide on my previous hangboard training. The effort that you really want to be exerting is going to the extreme. Like you got to go push it pretty hard to almost tap into that energy and to be able to eventually improve that rate of force of development, right? So with most of the hangs that we're going to be doing, it's going to be using half crimping. For people that have a hard time even just putting yourselves into this half crimp position, totally fine to do these exercises on big jugs, or you can, if you have like a better edge, you could just fully go into that slot and hold onto those onto the hangboard in that way. But if you're able to sustain that half crimp for that split second, then that's an ideal one, right? And where do we get this? Neil Gresham was one of the people I looked on Instagram, and he says half crimping is the most ideal grip position, right? Okay, and so never want to do any of these movements with a full crimp, because we're going to be doing a lot of dynamic movements, and full crimping puts an excessive load on your connective tissues in your fingers. And we can talk more about that another day, but we're going to be focusing on healthy fingers with doing some advanced hangboard training. So some things to keep in mind, right? You can just go ahead, read off the list there. While we're doing these exercises, we'll do a little warm up, right? So probably just do like mini pull-ups, about 10 mini pull-ups, take a minute break, and then we'll do 3 sets of those just to get your body warmed up, get your fingers engaged, right? And then one important thing is pull-up bands, right? You can easily buy these on Amazon. And I would actually recommend, so you have different types of pull-up bands. One is a lot thinner, right? Obviously won't be able to resist as much, but you also have like really thick pull-up bands here. I would recommend using two of the smaller pull-up bands, and place each foot into one band. So this is going to help for people that have a hard time actually being able to do a full pull-up or doing more dynamic movements here. I'll just demonstrate real quickly, but what you want to do is, if you have like a big jug, and then place it in one foot here, and then place it in one foot here. And with these exercises, it's good to having it in both feet so that you can have it a little bit more evenly distributed. A lot of times I see people that have like a single pull-up band, and it sort of like offsets your balance. So having 2 more narrow, thinner pull-up bands and placing it in both feet can really help to like even out that balance there. So if you don't have any of these pull-up bands today, totally fine. The last thing to keep in mind is this is going to be really hard, right? And it's okay if you fail. Right? It's totally fine. Yeah, so you're going to fail. So am I. But the important thing is just not give up and just keep trying, right? And the first slide that had that graph, the exercise training session lasted 14 weeks, right? So this is the first day of doing these exercises. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but if you keep on doing these consistently, then that's the important thing, and you're gonna eventually get stronger. Any questions at all so far? No, I don't see any questions in the chat group. Okay, good. All right, so dynamic hangboarding. Let's start off with, we'll just do mini pull-ups. So you don't even have to do like the full pull-up here, but I want you to do 10 mini pull-ups back and forth. So I'll do it with you guys. Feel free to just take your time with these. But we'll do mini pull-ups here. Try to go back and forth at 10 reps. Or you can do full pull-ups here, fully hang. And then take a break. So we'll rest for about a minute. And then we'll do another set of those. I wish I could watch all of you guys working out. Amy, you're just sitting there. I'm just kidding. Twisting your arm. Yeah, no, feel free. All right, let's do another set of pull-ups here. So a little bit more dynamic. Good, and some mini pull-ups. Oh. I'm tired already. We haven't even started. This is what staying at home for 4 weeks has gotten me out of shape. Question, do you think we should hangboard back-to-back days? Hangboard, so I would not recommend hangboarding back-to-back. You know, given the situation that we are in, that we actually don't climb right now, and maybe you're using hangboarding as instead of actually climbing. So if your intensity of hangboarding is not like to the extreme degree, maybe it's okay, but I would give it at least a day or two. You know, ideally it would be 2 days of rest and then getting back to an hangboard session. But with this current hangboard, like more of a dynamic hangboarding, I would only do it like once a week for now. Maybe you can eventually incorporate it doing twice a week, but not too much. Okay, let's warm up one more time here. Okay. Good question though. Hey, Roger and Christine. Guys looking good. What's up, Myung? All right. So hopefully you guys are decently warmed up. For normal hangboard sessions, this is an app that I typically use. You could do for 3 different grips. It's really nice to just have an app that you can use to just set the timer and then follow the timer, and the time goes by really quickly. But Myung, you're exhausted already. I'm with you there, brother. I'm pretty tired too myself. Okay, so we're gonna do 4 different exercises, and it's gonna actually get progressively harder and harder. So the last exercise, it'll be very challenging, and you're gonna watch me fail like crazy. But who cares, right? We wanna get stronger, and we wanna try to get better at our skill here. So if you look at the shaded words, that's gonna be a slightly easier variation, okay? So the first one, catch and lock. So I'll just explain each of these as we do it. But the first one, what you're going to do is you might want like a stool. So if you look at what I have here set up, I'm going to be standing on this stool, and then essentially you're going to jump, catch it, and the first one we're going to lock off all the way. So you're going to be fully locked off here for a split second and then come right off. And we'll do 10 of those like that, right? So we're going to jump, catch, and then explosively pull in, lock off, and then relax. We'll do 10 of those, and then I'll give it a 2-minute rest. And then afterwards, we're gonna do that same jumping motion, but this time, you're gonna get a little bit lower, and then you jump, you catch it, lock off at 90 degrees. So your elbows are gonna be 90 degrees, and just try to hold that position. Take a break, and right away, get back onto that 10 times. After that, we're gonna take a rest. And then lastly, you probably don't need a stool or anything. You just jump from here, latch on, and then grab it. The elbows roughly around 30 degrees, right? And all right, so let's start. So one, I'm gonna get low here, and then jump, catch, and relax.
No, that's 120 degrees.
Okay. It's 2, jump, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Whew. Okay. That was really hard. But what we're gonna do is take about I'll give it a 2-minute rest here. So I'll just have a timer here set, and then allow myself some rest. Within these 2 minutes, I'm actually, oh, question. Do you have to use a chair? Yeah, definitely use a chair for this one. Either a chair or some type of stool, something that's not gonna slide. And catch and lock, you want to, for the easier variation, you don't have to actually jump and grab it. You can just keep your hands on the jugs and then jump into it, right? So we'll do that for the next 2. We got 1 minute and 18 seconds left. I'm gonna go grab some water, so I'll be right back. Okay, 45 seconds left. If you guys want to see my dog, here she is. I hope she doesn't get in my way. Sophie, hi baby. All right, 30 seconds left. Maybe if we have time, I'll show you some tricks that I've been teaching Sophie. Okay, so about 15 seconds left. I think that's good. So next one, once again, if it's too hard to actually jump and attach yourself to those jugs, you can just keep your hands on and then lock in, right? So this next one, we're gonna just lock your elbows to 90 degrees. So 90 and relax. 10 times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Okay, that actually wasn't as bad. Reason being, I think a lot of times with climbing, ideally, a lot of times we are actually just within this range of about 90 degrees, plus or minus like 20 degrees. So maybe that's why that one wasn't as challenging for myself. But yeah, I thought the first one was a lot harder. So we'll start another 2-minute timer here and go from there. Any questions? How are you guys doing? I'm just talking to myself here. No, it's okay. Doing well? Thanks, thumbs up. Sounds good. All right. Got a minute and a half left. So yeah, I had a lot of questions from the previous Hangboard. I had different slides up for that, but I didn't create any slides for this dynamic hangboarding session. So don't have as many questions myself to ask you guys and answer. But once again, if you feel like you have any questions, feel free. Chat, I'm tall though. Oh, Liz, yeah, you don't have to use a chair if you're tall enough to grab and be able to do those full lockoffs. But I got about 45 seconds left. So this next one, I'm not going to use a stool because you want to make sure that you're locking off with this slight flexion of the elbows here. So I'll get my stool out of the way for now. And about 15 seconds left. Oh, Dan, good tip. So Dan says, keep emphasizing quick engagement of muscles, right? So if this is not challenging for you, then you got to just be a lot more like explosive, right? So that's something to really keep in mind. You're not just like, dabbling onto the hangboard. You got to just like attack it and then relax. So that's a good point there. All right, let's start. I'll answer the other question later, but this one we're gonna do 10 reps here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Oh, I'm exhausted. All right, 2 minutes. 2 minutes here, and then we'll take a. Feel free to answer more questions. So, how did I learn these exercises? There are not. So, in terms of the research out there, a lot of the rate of force development, the research is done primarily on lower extremity, not as much done on upper body. So a lot of these, I'm trying to take those principles of what they did in those different research designs and try to apply it to climbers, right? And especially for climbers, we really need to just beef up our arms and beef up the strength in our arms. And so those principles, like knowing that very quick, fast twitch type of explosive muscle contraction and applying them to different movements that we do that are very relatable to climbing. So that's how I learned those exercises, and as well as a lot of just research, looking at what other people have been doing and trying to apply something similar to that, right? So 30 seconds left. Okay, so this next one, I'll explain it and then we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. Half crimp, explosive pull-ups. For people that can't do a half crimp and pull up explosively, you can feel free to grab the jugs. So you're gonna be doing a complete dead hang right here. So in this position, I'm gonna try to do it, target it with half crimping. So I'm gonna grab some chalk. And you only wanna do, let's just try to do a max of 3 to 4 pull-ups there. So you're gonna hang, dead hang, and then just pull up as fast as you can, and then just come right off. You can either come right off completely or pull up quick and then lower yourself down and still remain hanging. And then quick again and come back down, remain hanging. Whatever works for you. But we'll do, I'll do 3 reps. We'll rest for 2 minutes and then do 3 sets of those. So get myself up here. I'm gonna go to a half crimp, fully hang, pull up. Okay, so 2-minute rest. And that honestly wasn't too bad. So, you know, sometimes these exercises, like you have to constantly remind yourself to just like be explosive, right? And that's something that I'm personally learning myself as well. If you've ever seen me climbing at First Ascent or Brooklyn Boulders, I'm a very static, slow climber. So I really don't like doing like dynamic movements. So I think this, for me personally, is going to be really helpful because I'm not much of a dynamic climber, and you know that's something that's my weak point. So if anything, this workshop is for myself because I really need to be a little bit more explosive sometimes. Question. I think they are recording it, so hopefully it'll be available. Would you recommend half crimp pull-ups with rubber band? Yeah, definitely. If that's something you can do with rubber bands, totally, for sure. Because you want to learn to be able to engage, not just always grabbing jugs and being explosive, to be able to have those climbing grip positions. So if you can do it with a rubber band, that's all power to you. Okay, so we've got 20 more seconds left. It's the best way to modify this if you can't do pull-ups by using bands. Yes, exactly. So use bands, or you can, if you're fully in this position here, you can actually just stay down and then jump up to the jugs and then see if you get that momentum sort of jumping up, and then see if you could pull yourself up as well. Okay. All right, so second set here. Half crimp pull-ups, just 3 sets, 3 reps. 1, 2. I don't know if you can see. My dog wants to dance with me here. Okay, so another 2-minute rest. Good. All right, I'm gonna actually also open the window. It's definitely getting warm. Oh, you got a cat there. Everyone should watch Christine's cat doing pull-ups. That's awesome. I think I should grab our cat too, Meatball. Christine, what's the cat's name? I don't even know. I'm not a good lip reader. I got a minute left. I don't do sign either, I'm sorry. Oh, Meichi. Wait, how does Jack know the cat's name? Is that the right name? Meichi? It's adorable. 45 seconds left, guys. And we'll do one more set here and go on to the next exercise. She's named after Meichi Narasaki. I don't. Oh, isn't that Meguchi? Meichi? I don't know. I don't know Japanese climbers. Okay, last set here. After explode. Okay, that was good. So another 2 minute rest. I think that last set for me, I actually was able to definitely feel a lot more of that like acceleration as I was coming up. The first two, it's getting a little bit used to like the actual movements and everything, but this time I think I was able to just like explode and pop up there. So hope you guys were able to do it as well. If you are experiencing little tweaks here and there, just be careful. And honestly, you should be fresh when you're doing these exercises. But once again, this is definitely better to do the training this way as opposed to like you're climbing and you're confronted with a certain movement that you have to force yourself to do and you're doing it for the first time. Like that's where injuries can happen, right? If you're doing more structured, regimented exercises, then there's less likelihood of you getting injured. 50 seconds left. Okay, so this next one, campus exercise. So we are going to learn to, you're gonna find two different grip positions. So for me, I'm going to probably just grab the jugs. So jugs, and then I'm gonna switch from the middle, like decent rung, and then go back and forth. So I'll go left, right, and then left, right, and I'll switch right, left, and just alternate between those two, right? And all the time, you're locked off in this like 90-degree position with your elbows, and you're just trying to alternate back and forth like this. And we're gonna do it for just 15 seconds. So you want to give yourself, so I did a 10-second start, warm up, and then it's gonna count down 15 seconds and give us 2-minute rests, and we'll do that 3 times, okay? For those that have bands, you could definitely use the bands to help you. You don't necessarily want to do this with your feet on something because part of that, you're not gonna be able to get that like dynamic movement there, right? If your feet are on the ground or on a chair and you're offsetting your weight, a lot of the likelihood is you're gonna rely on that way too much. And it doesn't get that fast recruitment ability there. So you want to use bands. Bands, right? If you sink into the band, there still is that play of like you really have to force yourself to stay on the hangboard. So either use bands to slightly offset your weight, or if you're able to fully hang with as normal campus positions there, and then just go back and forth. Okay. For the easier one, you can just grab the jugs, and as you're hanging there with the jugs, I want you to just shift your weight to one side and then let go. Try to lift one hand off for a split second, and then switch over to the other side and lift the hand off, and just alternate back and forth for 15 seconds. So go back and forth like that. Another important thing is not to rush. So this is not about like how many times you could do this within 15 seconds. It's about control and being able to latch on and then make sure you're grabbing and you have that tight, your entire body should be nice and tight and grabbing onto the hangboard there, okay? So a couple little things to think about, but it'll take some time. So let's try this. 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, all right. Developing those fast twitch muscle fibers there, and hope it's working, guys. I'm exhausted. So we're giving ourselves a minute 45 rest. Question from Nari. Why do we hold at 90 degrees when alternating between two different positions? So 90 degrees, right? So if you're holding yourself in this position, elbow should be at 90 degrees and you're switching back and forth. Typically with climbing, a lot of our positions are within this 90 degrees. You can definitely do it in this position here, but it's not really engaging as much of your lats. So you really want to keep your entire body tension, right? How many seconds we got left? Okay, so keeping your entire body in that full tension. So getting your lats engaged, 90 degrees, and in a way, you're isometrically holding this position as you're switching back and forth. And a lot of studies have shown that even when you're working in a certain 90-degree angle, you're actually benefiting the range that's 20 to 30 degrees in one direction versus the other direction. So a lot of times we're in these positions as we're climbing. So 90 degrees is more theoretically the ideal position there. So Dan asked, what should angle of arm be? I think we covered that a little bit, 90 degrees. Oh, here we go, 10 seconds left. All right, 2-minute rest. For me, I was actually struggling a lot when I had to, this is my left hand, I had to lock off with my left hand and then let go with my right and switch over. I could feel my body just dropping as I was trying to hold on with my left arm there. Okay, how are we all feeling so far? Good, thumbs up, sideways, thumbs tied, down, tired. Good, looks like everyone's doing well. This is actually really hard to give a class, and Jen, shout out to Jen Saito who does all her core classes while she's instructing at the same time. I'm very impressed. Got a minute left here. All right. Any other questions? Oh yeah, and Jen smiles the whole time. That's crazy. Hopefully I've been smiling the majority of the time here. Craig, I can't wait to get onto your wall, your climbing wall. That's so cool. Everyone look at Craig's wall right now. His background there. He designed that and he made it. And it's on his back porch right now. 12, okay, 10 seconds. All right. Okay, good. We could stop this timer here. And I'll still give us a 2-minute rest. So clock is counting down. And this will be the last exercise that we do. Oh, it's almost 8 o'clock. So thank you everyone that has been with me throughout this whole session. I appreciate it. You know, it's late at night and last thing you want to do is learn from somebody. My wife, Sufe, has kept on reminding me not to lecture you guys. So I've been trying to reduce the amount of content and have it a little more interactive. You guys are not talking to me. Come on, guys. I'm just kidding. Okay, so last one. This is going to be the hardest. It is, oh, thanks, Brent. Appreciate you taking the time. It's fun. I enjoy this a lot, and you know, I love teaching people. So I'm very, the pleasure is all mine, right? But the last exercise is single arm, half crimp catch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my stool, stand on it, and then I'm gonna actually hold the half crimp position. So from here, jump up into a 90, at least try to reach that 90-degree position there for at least a second, and then come right back down. Okay, so once again, like explode, always think in the mindset of just explosive power there, right? So for people that can't hold that half crimp position or even just lock off, it's gonna be really hard for me too, but you can feel free to grab a jug and then hold onto that jug, jump up for it. You can even hold on to something with your other hand, but just hold it for a split second and then come right back down. Okay. So let's do, okay, we're gonna do alternate right and left 3 times, and then I'll do 2-minute rest, and I'll do 3 sets of those. Okay, so let's go ahead, do that. So here, two, last one. Maybe I should mute myself while I'm doing these. All right, 2-minute rest. Thanks for bearing with all my funny sounds that I'm making while trying to exercise here. Okay, so how did that go? Roger, you look solid, dude. Hanging on there. Someone want to say something?
It was really hard.
Yes. It was actually really hard for me too. So I'm with you guys. Like all of these exercises, you know, I should be doing them more frequently, but I'm just as lazy as everyone else is. And I feel like COVID has given me an excuse to just like sort of set the exercise on the side and, you know, focus on some other parts of my life. But doing these exercises has kicked my butt and gotta get back on it. Yeah, definitely need a band for this one. If we do this once a week, can you suggest what would be best for the other 2 days of hangboarding? Okay, so this in particular is very dynamic, right? But the other hangboard sessions, you can just do the typical 10-second hangs, give yourself 1-minute rest. And within that same grip, you do 3 sets. So 10-second hang, 1-minute rest, 3 times, and then go to a different grip. So choose like three different grips. And hopefully BKB recorded my last session. So if you wanted to just get like general idea of what to do, you can go refer back to that one. But regular hangboard sessions would be great on top of this once a week, right? Okay, so let's get back to it one more time, or two more times here. This is our second set. Getting weaker and weaker. Last one. And one more. All right, 2 more minutes of rest and we'll do one more set and we'll be done. What was I thinking about that lesson? Okay, so this last one, I was actually thinking I need to like really think about like being a lot more explosive. So once again, that's something me as a very like static, slow climber, I'm not used to just like going full throttle all at once. So once again, I have to remind myself of that, right? Question, if you have a tendon strain, should you avoid hangboarding completely or tape and avoid using that finger? I would, really depends on the severity of your tendon strain, but if you are able to, so, you know, in terms of the rehab world, PT world, I think it's safe to work within a range out of a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being no pain at all, 10 being excruciating, unbearable. It's okay to work within a range of 3 to 4 out of 10 pain. So slight pain is okay even if you're feeling it. It's a different case altogether if you have a fracture or like bone stress potentially leading into a stress fracture. You have to just rest it completely. But with tendon issues, I think it's definitely okay to work within that pain range. So if it doesn't hurt excessively and you're being really ginger about the hang itself and is very minimal pain, like up to a 4 out of 10 pain, I think it's okay to work within that range. Bye, Victoria. See you later. All right, so last one here, last hang. Thanks everyone for keeping with me. Make a fool out of myself here. So last one, here we go. One, two, once again, I'm reminding myself that I have to go all in and be fully engaged here. 3 or 2, one more. Let's just do one more just in case. Last one. All right. How does everyone feel? End of the session here. There's Sufei, my wife, my beautiful wife over there. So thanks so much for joining me on this advanced hangboard session, more of a dynamic hangboarding, you know, as opposed to just the static hangs. Something to help with changing it up a little bit. Dynamic movements, so like power movements. One other thing is it actually helps to stiffen your tendons. So you do want both to have a different variation, right? When you're purely hangboarding, that's going to actually lengthen your tendons. But when you're doing something more dynamic, like campus board training is another way of dynamic movements, that actually has, over a period of time, it causes stiffness to the tendons, right? So not always get to focus on one type of exercise. You want to vary it up to really help have better health of your entire body, right? Any other questions? Thanks. No, yeah. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm just as exhausted as you guys are. So thanks for keeping up with me. And until next time, yeah. So if you guys want to stick around to ask some more questions, feel free. But we're done all year. You guys are free to go. But thanks so much for attending.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thanks, James.
You're welcome. Have a good one, everyone. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna leave the meeting right now. Bye.